Welcome back to The Haunted Beard, everybody. My name is Jake. Thank you for joining me today. So, obviously, we all know 2023 is coming to an end, and I thought it'd be cool to give you my top 10 list of horror movie moments for this past year. These are just my personal favorite moments, the scariest, the best, the most shocking or unexpected horror movie moments from 2023. So, before I get started though, I will say I should probably issue a spoiler warning as I'm going to get into some of the specifics of the 10 scenes that I'm getting ready to talk about. So, you have been officially warned. With that being said, let's do it. And I have to start things off with one honorable mention because this movie is not a horror movie and it's not even really a thriller, but it is one of the best films I saw all year, and it has one of the most thrilling scenes, not only from all year, but probably the last few years, and that is the atomic bomb test from Oppenheimer. Man, oh man, what a phenomenal sequence this was. And this is really about a 10 to 15 minute sequence that leads up to the first official test of the atomic bomb. But man, it is just phenomenal. The way that Christopher Nolan shoots and directs and edits this sequence is just fantastic. And the entire movie has been building up to this point. And first of all, the theater going experience when I saw this was phenomenal, but I will never forget it for a few reasons. But one of them was being that when it got to this point in the movie theater, I had to pee like crazy, but there is no way I was going to leave my seat because I didn't want to miss this scene. And what unfolded was one of the best scenes of the year. This is absolute, just white knuckle tension, unlike I have seen in quite some time. Again, the editing, the building up of just the intensity and thrills of it all until the test. And when that bomb lands and all the sound goes cut.
2, 1.
Man, you could hear a pin drop in that theater. Just a fantastic scene in a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen Oppenheimer, go check it out. It's awesome. All right, let's kick things off with the official list. Coming in at number 10 is going to be the opening kill scene from Scream 6. So I'm a big fan of the Scream franchise, and overall, I thought Scream 6 was a pretty solid entry into the Scream franchise, and I really enjoyed the opening here. And obviously the Scream franchise is known for having pretty solid and memorable openings, and I think Scream 6 is up there with some of the best of them, as we get Samara Weaving, one of our big name stars here, at a bar, answers a phone call, and there's just this thought that, man, are they going to kill her off right from the get-go? Sure enough, she crosses the street, goes into the alley, and wouldn't you know it, Ghostface kills her. And while that is a good scene, what elevates it is what happens next, and that is Ghostface takes off his mask, and we get to see in the first 5 to 10 minutes of the movie who is behind the mask. Just a really unexpected moment that took a turn and did something different that we never seen in 6 movies up to this point in the Scream films. But then as it continues, we see that this is a college kid, that he knows some of the main characters in the movie. And as he's making his way back to his dorm, he runs into Jenna Ortega's character, and he gets back there, and wouldn't you know it, another twist, an unexpected moment, another Ghostface killer comes out of nowhere and kills this guy. And so just that whole opening sequence with the kill of Samara Weaving, the reveal of Ghostface, only for the Ghostface to be killed by another Ghostface, I just thought that that was a really unique and different way to start off what I thought was a pretty solid entry in the Scream franchise. So that is why the opening scene from Scream 6 comes in at my number 10. Coming in at number 9, this is a lesser seen film, but this is going to be the Attack in the Dark scene from The Outwaters. And for those of you, if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you've probably learned that I am a fan of found footage. And The Outwaters is a found footage film, and it has a little bit of an experimental style to it, but overall, I was really impressed with The Outwaters. And there is a scene where a character is attacked in the dark that really stuck with me. Now, the setup to The Outwaters is pretty simple. It follows a group of 3 or 4 friends who go to the desert to film this music video. And to put it simply, once they arrive, things get crazy and bizarre and just wild. And The Outwaters, I think, elevates itself because of how the second half of the film is presented. There is so much of the movie where 95% of the screen is completely pitch black, with the exception of just one circle of light that's moving around the frame. And the director makes use of this really well by having an incredible sound design to the film. And the film has to really rely on that to really be effective and sell what it's trying to convey, because again, there's a large part of this film where you can't see a whole lot of what's going on. And so you have to be able to hear things so your mind can fill in all the details. And there's a scene where our character is out at night walking around because he hears something. He looks up on this hill and you can just barely make out the silhouette of this guy. And it looks like he's got a big old axe that he's carrying. And then it cuts to black. You can't see nothing. And the sound takes over. And man, that little 10 to 15 second sequence there has stuck with me ever since I've seen this. And like I said, it's that sound design and those sound effects that the director here really has to use well in order to sell the movie, in order to make a good impact. And I think he just does a great job with it. And so that scene where the character's attacked in the dark, I think is just top-notch stuff. That's why it's my number 9. Coming in at number 8 is going to be the cheese grater attack scene from Evil Dead Rise. And I was a pretty big fan of Evil Dead Rise. I thought it was a worthy addition to the franchise, and I quite enjoyed it. A lot of just good, bloody, demonic fun. And I will say, before I get into the specific cheese grater scene, I could probably have a 2-for-1 deal when it comes to this movie, because the final sequence with the wood chipper is just phenomenal. But I'm going to pick the cheese grater scene, as this just has a weapon of choice that I thought was just fantastic. What's great about this is that this is where we find out that the younger girl has now been possessed by the demon. And so she is completely taken over, and she attacks her aunt, and wouldn't you know it, they're in the kitchen, and she grabs a cheese grater to attack her. And I just love the simplicity of it, and that this is something that everybody's familiar with. Everybody has used a cheese grater, and so it just has that familiarity to it. It's just this kitchen utensil that we've all used before, and she grabs it, man, and slices her calf muscle, man, and I just feel like you can't help but just grit your teeth, man. This has got like teeth grit factor like up through the roof. It's just great. I love the simplicity of it, that it's just this kitchen utensil. And man, it is just a gnarly little sequence there that I thought was just great. That's why it's my number 8. Next up at number 7 is the Thanksgiving dinner scene from, wouldn't you know it, Thanksgiving. And I will say again, there is going to be spoilers, especially with this one, as I'm going to be talking about some of the climactic and ending sequence here. You get towards the end of the movie and John Carver has captured pretty much all of our main characters who are remaining and has tied them up and sat them around a table. And wouldn't you know it, he just cooked the stepmom in the oven and decides to bring her out to serve her for the Thanksgiving meal. And oh my goodness, this scene is just insane. Look, I just dropped my review for this movie, and overall, I was just slightly above average for the movie, but the kill scenes are phenomenal, and this Thanksgiving dinner scene is worth the price of admission. Not only does he serve the freshly roasted stepmom, but then he takes out the turkey carving knife and starts carving up her thigh to serve it to one of the guests at the dinner table. Then the kid gets the turkey tenderizer hammer to the head, and he just gets his head smashed to pieces. Yeah, it's just a horrific and gross and kind of funny in a very sick, twisted sort of way scene, but definitely stuck out, definitely memorable, and it's the best scene of that entire movie as far as I'm concerned. The Thanksgiving Day dinner sequence, man. Check it out if you haven't. It's pretty good stuff, and that's why it's my number 7. Next up at number 6 is VHS 85. I've been a big fan of the VHS franchise, and this one comes from the segment No Wake. And this is an example of why I do my best to avoid as much promo and trailers and everything as possible, because going into something blind is the best way to go into it, as I had no idea really what any of these short film segments were about. And this is the first full sequence that you get in the movie, and I have no idea what's getting ready to happen. I have no clue. You get these group of friends, it looks like they're going out on this camping trip, and they're setting up a tent, and they're hanging out by the lake, and then they decide to go skiing in the water. And just, man, at the drop of a dime, all hell breaks loose as somebody just starts opening fire and sniping these people out of the boats. And you're just taken aback. I mean, it gets bloody and gory real fast, out of nowhere. And then, as if that wasn't crazy enough, about a minute later, they start resurrecting. And so my number 7 is the death and resurrection scene from the No Wake segment in VHS 85. As, man, this just had this great, like, shocking jaw drop moment. First with them getting killed and just the bloodiness of that, and then them coming back to life and resurrecting was just like, what in the world is going on here?
Stay down. I'm gonna help. I'm gonna. Oh, Jesus. Shit! Kelly, it's okay.
I thought that was a phenomenal segment, and man, VHS 85, they're 6 movies into this series now, and I was really impressed with it. They've already greenlit another one, so bring it on. I can't wait to see what they do with this series next. Coming in at number 5, wouldn't you know it, it's another found footage film. I can't help it. There was some good stuff in found footage this year, but this comes from Hell House LLC Origins, and this is the laptop interview scene. Now, like with pretty much all of these, there is probably at least 2 or 3 or 4 different scenes that I could have picked, and some of the obvious ones here would have been any of the scenes involving the clowns. There's some really good stuff there. There's another sequence where a character is following somebody kind of down this hallway, and they're peeking around the little pillar in the house. Is a good scene there. But the one that really stood out to me was the interview scene on the laptop, as one of our main characters is doing this job interview via Zoom, basically, and things start getting a little crazy as something takes over her laptop and starts showing her video and photos from inside the house where she's at. Eventually builds up to where she sees herself from the back as she's looking at the computer. And I just really love the build here, as it just gets creepy and eerie. Then you can see somebody in the corner of the shot, and it ends with, I think, it's a pretty well-earned jump scare. I'm not typically a fan of most jump scares, but I think this one here is pretty well-earned, because the build-up and the gradual suspense that it builds earns the jump scare that you get at the end. So it just has a really solid creep factor, and I just like the build-up to it. I think it's just really effective, and I quite enjoyed that scene in Hell House LLC Origins, and that's why it's my number 5. Coming in at number 4 is the self-performed brain surgery scene from Saw X. And I think I'm probably like just about every horror film fan out there in that Saw X has got to be the surprise of the year. It's certainly the most unexpected surprise for me, as this movie is way better than I would have ever expected, than really it had any right to be. And it really injected some brand new life and energy and excitement into this franchise. It has some really solid traps. The one with the chick cutting off her leg was also a really gnarly one. But man, the brain surgery scene, as this guy is literally got to cut out his skull and start pulling out brain matter to fill into this little cup here to get enough of it so he can free himself from a trap. I mean, it's diabolical. It's absolutely ridiculous and insane and over the top. And it's exactly what we would expect from Jigsaw. I haven't done an official Saw Trap ranking video, and I know this one maybe has a little bit of recency bias to it because I've just watched it pretty recently, but this is one of the better traps in the entire franchise. It's gnarly, it's crazy, it's extremely memorable, and I think it's just fantastic. And that's why the brain surgery scene from Saw X is my number 4 horror movie moment of the year. All right, here we go. Next up at number 3 is going to be the cloning process scene from Infinity Pool. Man, Brandon Cronenberg is something special. This guy is just operating in a very unique and weird and twisted creative space, and I can't wait to see what he does next. Now with Possessor and Infinity Pool, yeah, he's building himself quite a resume there with those movies. But Infinity Pool, man, one of the most twisted and messed up movies of the year, but I quite enjoyed it, and that cloning scene has embedded itself into my brain. I love here just some of the wild, crazy editing and just some of the visual effects and just the bizarreness of it all. And then I love when Alexander Skarsgård goes in the room and he sees his own face in that like red plastic cutout thing. I don't even know what it is, but you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, just a weirdly wild, twisted movie. And Brandon Cronenberg, again, man, I don't know where that guy's headspace is, but bring on more of it. Again, I can't wait to see what he does next. And the cloning scene in Infinity Pool is pretty top-notch stuff, and that's why it's at my number 3. Coming in at number 2 is Riley's Possession in Talk to Me. Talk to Me, one of the best horror films of the year. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. And the best, most memorable, and horrific scene in that movie is when our poor old little Riley plays the game and gets possessed. And this scene works on 2 levels, because not only is it horrifying and disturbing as he stays in the sort of the realm for too long, and the demon, the ghost, whatever you really want to call it, takes over and starts inflicting harm on Riley. But it also works on a very dramatic and emotional level, because the film is written in such a way to where you really care for his character. At least I did anyway. And he was someone that you really kind of take a liking to. He's just kind of the innocent kid who just wants to be there and be involved and hang out with his sister and his friend. And unfortunately, it all goes to hell and something really, really bad happens. And so just the combination of the horror of it works because you're so invested emotionally and you care so much for his character. So you have that combination of horror and drama, and it kind of gets you in the feels a little bit as your heart just breaks for this poor kid when you see what happens to him. And man, just a very well-written film with, I think, very well-established characters, but it also, the directors, the Philippou brothers, handle the horror scenes really well. Also, and yeah, Talk to Me, really good stuff, one of the best of the year. And Riley's Possession is my number 2.
Oh my god.
All right, here we are. We have reached the end. My number 1 most memorable and favorite horror movie moment of 2023 is the dog attack scene from When Evil Lurks. And this movie was wild. It is brutal and gnarly, and just in terms of a pure just brutality and shock factor, it couldn't be anything other than this scene. As you're watching along, and like I've said with a few of these, there's a few different scenes that I probably could have chose for here, but there is nothing this year that got more of a reaction out of me than that dog attack. As you're just watching it, and things are a little tense, but man, it just comes out of nowhere. Yeah, it's crazy. This dog just jumps up and bites that poor little girl in the face and just runs off with her. And look, I watch most all my movies by myself, and I don't sit there and talk throughout them because I'm just trying to enjoy the movie. So it's pretty rare to get like an audible reaction out of me. But man, when that dog bit that girl's face, I literally yelled out, "Holy crap." It was shocking and so unexpected. Again, the fact that you go after a kid too, that was the moment I knew like Damien Rugna is not messing around. This guy is serious about his horror movies, and I cannot wait to see what this guy does next. So When Evil Lurks, man, is a crazy movie, and that dog attack scene is not something I will soon forget. You can be sure of that. So anyways, that concludes my list. Like always, hit me up down below. Let me know some of your favorite horror movie moments and some of your favorite horror movie scenes from this past year. Would love to hear from you. That's all I got for you. Thank you once again, everybody, for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you next time on The Haunted Beard.